Chapter 3. I'm 10, playing in the Nationals, second round. I lose badly to some kid who's older, who's supposed to be the best in the country. Not that this makes it easier. How can losing hurt so much? How can anything hurt so much? I walk off the court wishing I was dead. I stagger out to the parking lot. As my father gathers our stuff and says goodbye to the other parents, I sit in the car, crying. A man's face appears in the car window. Black guy, smiling. "Hey there," he says. "My name's Rudy." Same name as the man who helped my father build his backyard tennis court. Strange. "What's your name?" "Andre." He shakes my hand. "Nice to meet you, Andre." He says he works with the great champion Pancho Segura, who coaches kids my age. He comes to these big tournaments to scout kids for Pancho. He puts his arms through the window, leans heavily on the car door, sighs. He tells me that days like this are tough, he knows, very tough indeed, but in the end, these days will make me stronger. His voice is warm, thick, like hot cocoa. "That kid who beat you? Why, that kid's 2 years older than you. You've got 2 years to reach that kid's level. 2 years is an eternity, especially when you're working hard. Do you work hard?" "Yes, sir." "You've got so much ahead of you, son." "But I don't want to play anymore. I hate tennis." "Ha ha, sure you do. Right now, but deep down, you don't really hate tennis." "Yes, I do." "You just think you hate it." "No, I hate it." "You're saying that because you're hurting right now. Hurting like heck, but that just means you care. Means you want to win. You can use that. Remember this day. Try to use this day for motivation. If you don't want to feel this hurt again, good. Do everything you can to avoid it. Are you ready to do everything?" I nod. Fine. So go ahead and cry. Hurt a while longer, but then tell yourself, that's it. Time to get back to work." "Okay." I wipe my tears on my sleeve and thank Rudy, and when he walks away, I'm ready to practice. Bring on the dragon. I'm ready to hit balls for hours. If Rudy were standing behind me, whispering encouragement in my ear, I think I could beat that dragon. Suddenly my father climbs behind the wheel of the car and we drive slowly away, like the head car in a funeral procession. The tension in the car is so thick that I curl up on the back seat and close my eyes. I think about jumping out, running away, finding Rudy and asking him to coach me or adopt me. I hate all the junior tournaments, but I hate nationals most of all, because the stakes are higher and they're held in other states, which means airfare, motels, rental cars, restaurant meals. My father is shelling out money, investing in me, and when I lose, there goes another piece of his investment. When I lose, I set back the whole Agassi clan. I'm 11, playing nationals in Texas on clay. I'm among the best in the nation on clay, so there's no way I'm going to lose. And then I lose. In the semis. I don't even reach the final. Now I have to play a consolation match. When you lose in the semis, they make you play a match to determine third and fourth place. Worse, in this particular consolation match, I'm facing my arch nemesis, David Cass. He's ranked just below me, but somehow becomes a different player when he sees me across the net. No matter what I do, Cass beats me, and today is no different. I lose in 3 sets. Again, I'm shattered. I've disappointed my father. I've cost my family. I don't cry, however. I want to make Rudy proud, so I manage to choke back the tears. At the awards ceremony, a man hands out the first place trophy, then second, then third. Then he announces that this year a sportsmanship trophy will be awarded to the youngster who exhibits the most grace on the court. Incredibly, he says my name, maybe because I've been biting my lip for an hour. He's holding the trophy toward me, waving me to come and get it. It's the last thing in the world I want, a sportsmanship trophy, but I take it from the man and thank him, and something shifts inside me. It is an awfully cool trophy, and I have been a good sport. I walk out to the car, clutching the trophy to my chest, my father a step behind me. He says nothing. I say nothing. I concentrate on the click-clack of our footsteps on the cement. Finally, I break the silence. I say, "I don't want this stupid thing. I say it because I think it's what my father wants to hear. My father comes alongside me. He rips the trophy from my hands. He lifts it over his head and throws it on the cement. The trophy shatters. My father picks up the biggest piece and throws it on the cement, smashing it into smaller pieces. Now he collects the pieces and throws them into a nearby dumpster. I don't say a word. I know not to say a word. If only I could play soccer instead of tennis. I don't like sports, but if I must play a sport to please my father, I'd much rather play soccer. I get to play 3 times a week at school, and I love running the soccer field with the wind in my hair, calling for the ball, knowing the world won't end if I don't score. The fate of my father, of my family, of planet Earth, doesn't rest on my shoulders. If my team doesn't win, it will be the whole team's fault, and no one will yell in my ear. Team sports, I decide, are the way to go. My father doesn't mind my playing soccer because he thinks it helps my footwork on the court, but I recently hurt myself in a soccer scrimmage, pulled a muscle in my leg, and the injury forces me to skip tennis practice one afternoon. My father isn't happy. He looks at my leg, then me, as if I injured myself on purpose. But an injury is an injury. Even he can't argue with my body. He stomps out of the house. Moments later, my mother looks at my schedule and realizes I have a soccer game this afternoon. "What do we do?" she says. "The team is counting on me," I tell her. She sighs. "How do you feel?" "I think I can play." "Okay, put on your soccer uniform." "Do you think Pops will be upset?" "You know Pa. He doesn't need a reason to be upset." She drives me to the soccer game and leaves me there. After a few jogs up and down the field, my leg feels good, surprisingly good. I dart in between defenders, fluid, graceful, calling for the ball, laughing with my teammates. We're working toward a common objective. We're in this together. This feels right. This feels like me. Suddenly I look up and see my father. He's at the edge of the parking lot, stalking towards the field. Now he's talking to the coach. Now he's yelling at the coach. The coach is waving to me. "Agassi, out of the game!" I sprint off the field. "Get in the car," my father says, "and get out of that uniform." I run to the car and find my tennis clothes on the back seat. I put them on and walk back to my father. I hand him my soccer uniform. He walks onto the field and throws the uniform at the coach's chest. As we drive home, my father says without looking at me, "You're never playing soccer again." I beg him for a second chance. I tell my father that I don't like being by myself on that huge tennis court. Tennis is lonely, I tell him. There's nowhere to hide when things go wrong. No dugout, no sideline, no neutral corner. It's just you out there, naked. He shouts at the top of his lungs, "You're a tennis player! You're going to be number 1 in the world! You're going to make lots of money! That's the plan, and that's the end of it!" He's adamant and desperate because that was the plan for Rita, Philly, and Tammy, but things never worked out. Rita rebelled. Tammy stopped getting better. Philly didn't have the killer instinct. My father says this about Philly all the time. He says it to me, to Mom, even to Philly, right to his face. Philly just shrugs, which seems to prove that Philly doesn't have the killer instinct. But my father says far worse things to Philly. "You're a born loser," he says. "You're right," Philly says in a sorrowful tone. "I am a born loser. I was born to be a loser." "You are. You feel sorry for your opponent. You don't care about being the best." Philly doesn't bother to deny it. He plays well. He has talent. But he just isn't a perfectionist. And perfection isn't the goal in our house. It's the law. If you're not perfect, you're a loser. A born loser. My father decided that Philly was a born loser when Philly was about my age, playing nationals. Philly didn't just lose, he didn't argue when his opponents cheated him, which made my father turn bright red and scream curses in Assyrian from the bleachers. Like my mother, Philly takes it, and then every ounce in a great while he blows. The last time it happened, my father was stringing a tennis racket, my mother was ironing, and Philly was on the couch watching TV. My father kept after Philly, mercilessly nagging him about his performance at a recent tournament. All at once, in a tone I'd never heard him use, Philly screeched, "You know why I don't win? Because of you! Because you call me a born loser!" Philly started panting with anger. My mother started crying. "From now on," Philly continued, "I'll just be a robot. How's that? Would you like that? I'll be a robot and feel nothing and just go out there and do everything you say." My father stopped stringing the racket and looked happy, almost peaceful. "Jesus Christ," he said, "you're finally getting it." Unlike Philly, I argue with opponents all the time. I sometimes wish I had Philly's knack for shrugging off injustice. If an opponent cheats me, if he pulls a Tarango, my face gets hot. Often I get my revenge on the next point. When my cheating opponent hits a shot in the center of the court, I call it out and stare at him with a look that says, "Now we're even." I don't do this to please my father, but it surely does. He says, "You have a different mentality than Philly. You've got all the talent, all the fire, and the luck. You were born with a horseshoe up your ass." He says this once a day. Sometimes he says it with conviction, sometimes admiration, sometimes envy. I blanch when he says it. I worry that I got Philly's good luck, that I stole it from him somehow, because if I was born with a horseshoe up my ass, Philly was born with a black cloud over his head. When Philly was 12, he broke his wrist while riding his bike, broke it in 3 places, and that was the beginning of a long stretch of unbroken gloom. My father was so furious with Philly that he made Philly keep playing tournaments, broken wrist and all, which worsened Philly's wrist, made the problem chronic, and ruined his game forever. Favoring his broken wrist, Philly was forced to use a one-handed backhand, which Philly believes is a terrible habit, one he couldn't break after the wrist healed. I watch Philly lose and think, bad habits plus bad luck? Deadly combination. I also watch him when he comes home after a hard loss. He feels so rotten about himself. You can see it all over his face, and my father drives that rottenness down deeper. Philly sits in a corner, beating himself up over the loss, but at least it's a fair fight, 1-on-1. Then along comes my father. He jumps in and helps Philly gang up on Philly. There is name-calling, slapping. By rights, this should make Philly a basket case. At the very least, it should make him resent me, bully me. Instead, after every verbal or physical assault at the hands of himself and my father, Philly's slightly more careful with me, more protective, gentler. He wants me spared his fate. For this reason, though he may be a born loser, I see Philly as the ultimate winner. I feel lucky to have him as my older brother. Feeling lucky to have an unlucky older brother? Is that possible? Does that make sense? Another defining contradiction. Philly and I spend all our free time together. He picks me up at school on his scooter, and we go riding home across the desert, talking and laughing above the engine's insect whine. We share a bedroom at the back of the house, our sanctuary from tennis and pops. Philly is as fussy about his stuff as I am about mine, so he paints a white line down the center of the room, dividing it into his side and mine, ad court and deuce court. I sleep in the deuce court, my bed closest to the door. At night, before we turn out the lights, we have a ritual I've come to depend on. We sit on the edges of our beds and whisper across the line. Philly, 7 years older, does most of the talking. He pours out his heart, his self-doubts and disappointments. He talks about never winning. He talks about being called a born loser. He talks about needing to borrow money from Pops so that he can continue to play tennis, to keep trying to turn pro. Pops, we both agree, is not a man you want holding your marker. Of all the things that trouble Philly, however, the great trauma of his life is his hairline. "Andre," he says, "I'm going bald." He says this in the same way he would tell me the doctor has given him 4 weeks to live. But he won't lose his hair without a battle. Baldness is one opponent Philly will fight with all he's got. He thinks the reason he's going bald is that he's not getting enough blood to his scalp. So every night, at some point during our bedtime talks, Philly stands upside down. He puts his head on the mattress and lifts his feet, balancing himself against the wall. I pray it will work. I plead with God that my brother, the born loser, won't lose this one thing, his hair. I lie to Philly and tell him that I can see his miracle cure working. I love my brother so much. I'd say anything if I thought it would make him feel better. For my brother's sake, I'd stand on my own head all night. After Philly tells me his troubles, I sometimes tell him mine. I'm touched by how quickly he refocuses. He listens to the latest mean thing Pop said, gauges my level of concern, then gives me the proportionate nod. For basic fears, a half nod. For big fears, a full nod with patented Philly frown. Even when upside down, Philly says as much with one nod as most people say in a 5-page letter. One night, Philly asked me to promise him something. Sure, Philly, anything. Don't ever let Pops give you any pills. Pills? Andre, you have to hear what I'm telling you. This is really important. Okay, Philly, I hear you. I'm listening. Next time you go away to nationals, if Pops give you pills, don't take them. He already gives me Excedrin, Philly. He makes me take Excedrin before a match because it's loaded with caffeine. Yeah, I know. But these pills I'm talking about are different. These pills are tiny, white, round. Don't take them, whatever you do. What if Pops makes me? I can't say no to Pops. Yeah, right. Okay, let me think. Philly closes his eyes. I watch the blood rushing to his forehead, turning it purple. Okay, he says, I got it. If you have to take the pills, if he makes you take them, play a bad match. Tank. Then, as you come off the court, tell him you were shaking so bad that you couldn't concentrate. Okay, but Philly, what are these pills? Speed. What's that? A drug. Gives you lots of energy. I just know he's going to try and slip you some speed. How do you know, Philly? He gave it to me. Sure enough, at the Nationals in Chicago, my father gives me a pill. Hold out your hand, he says. This will help you. Take it. He puts a pill on my palm. Tiny, white, round. I swallow the pill and feel okay. Not much different. Slightly more alert. But I pretend to feel very different. My opponent, an older kid, poses no challenge, and still I carry him, drag out points, hand him several games. I make the match look tougher than it is. Walking off the court, I tell my father I don't feel right. I want to pass out, and he looks guilty. Okay, he says, rubbing his hand across his face. That's not good. We won't try that again. I phone Philly after the tournament and tell him about the pill. He says, I fucking knew it. I did just what you told me to do, Philly, and it worked. My brother sounds the way I imagine a father is supposed to sound, proud of me and scared for me at the same time. When I return from nationals, I grab him and hug him, and we spend my first night home locked in our room, whispering across the right line, cherishing our rare victory over Pops. A short time later, I play an older opponent and beat him. It's a practice match, no big deal, and I'm much better than the opponent. But once again, I carry him, drag out points, make the match look tougher than it is, just as I did in Chicago. Walking off court 7 at Cambridge, the same court on which I beat Mr. Brown, I feel devastated because my opponent looks devastated. I should have tanked all the way. I hate losing, but I hate winning this time because the defeated opponent is Philly. Does this devastated feeling prove I don't have the killer instinct? Confused, sad, I wish I could find that old guy, Rudy, or the other Rudy before him, and ask them what it all means. Chapter 4. I'm playing a tournament at the Las Vegas Country Club, vying for a chance to go to the state championship. My opponent is a kid named Roddy Parks. The first thing I notice about him is that he too has a unique father. Mr. Parks wears a ring with an ant frozen inside a large gumdrop of yellow amber. Before the match starts, I ask him about it. You see, Andre, when the world ends in a nuclear holocaust, ants will be the only things that survive. So I'm planning for my spirit to go into an ant. Roddy is 13, 2 years older than I, and big for his age, with a military crew cut. But he looks beatable. Right away, I see holes in his game, weaknesses. Then, somehow, he fills in the holes, papers over the weaknesses. He wins the first set. I talk to myself, tell myself to suck it up, dig in. I take the second set. Bearing down now, I play a smarter, quicker. I feel the finish line. Roddy is mine. He's toast. What kind of name is Roddy anyway? But a few points slip away, and now Roddy is raising his arms above his head. He's won the third set, 7-5, and the match. I look into the stands for my father, and he's staring down, concerned. Not angry, concerned. I'm concerned too, but damned angry also, sick with self-loathing. I wish I were the frozen ant in Mr. Park's ring. I'm saying hateful things to myself as I pack my tennis bag. Out of nowhere, a boy appears and interrupts my rant. "Hey," he says, "don't sweat it. You didn't play your best today." I look up. The boy is slightly older than I, a head taller, wearing an expression that I don't like. There's something different about his face. His nose and mouth are out of alignment. And the capper, he's wearing a fruity shirt with a little man playing polo? I want no part of him. "Who the fuck are you?" I say. "Perry Rogers." I turn back to my tennis bag. He won't take a hint. He drones on about how I didn't have my best game, how much better I am than Roddy, how I'll beat Roddy the next time, blah, blah. He's trying to be nice, I guess, but he's coming off like a know-it-all, like some kind of Bjorn Borg Jr., so I stand and pointedly do an about face. The last thing I need is a consolation speech, which is more pointless than a consolation trophy, especially from a kid with a man playing polo on his chest. Slinging my tennis bag over my shoulder, I tell him, "What the fuck do you know about tennis?" Later, I feel bad. I shouldn't have been so harsh. Then I find out the kid is a tennis player, that he was competing in the same tournament. I also hear he's got a crush on my sister Tammy, which is undoubtedly why he talked to me in the first place, trying to get close to Tammy. But I feel guilty. Perry is pissed. Word spreads along the Vegas teenager grapevine. Watch your back. Perry is gunning for you. He's telling everyone that you disrespected him, and the next time he sees you, he's going to kick your ass. Weeks later, Tammy says the whole gang is going to see our horror flick, all the older kids, and she asks if I want to go along. "That Perry kid going?" "Maybe." "Yeah, I'll go. I love horror movies, and I have a plan." Our mother drives us to the theater early so we can buy popcorn and licorice and find the perfect seats, dead center, middle row. I always sit dead center, middle row, best seats in the house. I put Tammy to my left and save the seat to my right. Sure enough, here comes Preppy Perry. I jump to my feet and wave, "Hey, Perry, over here." He turns, squints. I can see he's caught off guard by my friendliness. He's trying to analyze the situation, weigh his response. Then he smiles, visibly releases whatever anger he's been holding. He saunters down to the aisle and slides down our row, throwing himself in the seat next to me. "Hey, Tammy," he says across me. "Hey, Perry." "Hey, Andre." "Hey, Perry." Just as the lights go down and the first coming attraction starts, we give each other a look. Peace? Peace. The movie is Visiting Hours. It's about a psycho who stalks a lady journalist, sneaks into her house, kills her maid, then for some reason puts on lipstick and pops out when the lady journalist comes home. She fights free and somehow gets to a hospital where she thinks she's safe, but of course the psycho is hiding in the hospital, trying to find the lady journalist's room, killing everyone who gets in his way. Cheesy but satisfyingly creepy. When scared, I react like a cat thrown into a room full of dogs. I freeze, don't move a muscle, but Perry apparently is the high-strung type. As the suspense builds, he twitches and fidgets and spills soda on himself. Every time the killer jumps out of a closet, Perry jumps out of his seat. Several times I turn to Tammy and roll my eyes. I don't tease Perry about his reaction, however. I don't even mention it when the lights come on. I don't want to break our fragile peace accord. We roll out of the theater and decide the popcorn and Cokes and Twizzlers weren't enough. We head across the street to Winchell's and buy a box of French crullers. Perry gets his covered with chocolate. I get mine with rainbow sprinkles. We eat the donuts at the counter, talking. Perry sure can talk. He's like a lawyer before the Supreme Court. Then, in the middle of a 15-minute sentence, he stops and asks the guy behind the counter, "Is this place open 24 hours? "Yep," the counter guy says. 7 days a week? "Uh-huh." 365 days a year? "Yeah." "Then why are there locks on the front door?" We all turn and look. What a brilliant question. I start laughing so hard that I have to spit out my cruller. Rainbow sprinkles are falling from my mouth like confetti. This might be the funniest, smartest thing anyone's ever said. Certainly the funniest, smartest thing said by anyone in this particular Winchell's. Even the donut guy has to smile and admit, "Kid, that's a head-scratcher." "Isn't life just like that?" Perry says, "full of Winchell's locks and other stuff you can't explain?" You said it. I always thought I was the only one who noticed, but here's a kid who not only notices, he points that stuff out. When my mother comes to pick up me and Tammy, I'm sad to say goodbye to my new friend Perry. I even find myself less annoyed by his polo shirt. I ask my father if I can sleep over at Perry's house. "No fucking way," he says. He doesn't know Perry's family from a hole in the ground, and he doesn't trust anyone he doesn't know. My father is suspicious of everyone in the world, especially the parents of our friends. I don't bother asking why, and I don't waste my breath arguing. I just invite Perry to our house for a sleepover. Perry's extremely polite with my parents. He's agreeable with my siblings, especially Tammy, though she's gently discovered his crush. I ask if he wants a quick tour. "Sure thing," he says, so I show him the room I share with Philly. He laughs at the white stripe down the middle. I show him the court out back. He takes a turn hitting with the dragon. I tell him how much I hate the dragon, how I used to think it was a living, breathing monster. He looks sympathetic. He's seen enough horror flicks to know that monsters come in all shapes and sizes. Since Perry is a fellow connoisseur of horror, I've got a surprise for him. I've scored a beta copy of The Exorcist. After seeing him jump out of his skin at visiting hours, I can't wait to see how he reacts to a genuine horror classic. After everyone's asleep, we slide the movie into the machine. I suffer a minor aneurysm with every rotation of Linda Blair's head, but Perry doesn't flinch once. Visiting hours gives him the shakes, but The Exorcist leaves him cold, I think. This dude marches to his own drummer. Afterward, we sit up drinking sodas and talking. Perry agrees that my father's scarier than anything Hollywood can offer, but he says his father is twice as scary. His father, he says, is an ogre, a tyrant, and a narcissist. The first time I've heard this word. Perry says narcissist means he thinks only about himself. It also means his son is his personal property. He has a vision of how his son's life is going to be, and he couldn't care less about his son's vision of that future. Sounds familiar. Perry and I agree that life would be 1,000,000 times better if our fathers were like other kids' fathers. But I hear an added note of pain in Perry's voice, because he says his father doesn't love him. I've never questioned my father's love. I just wish it were softer, with more listening and less rage. In fact, I sometimes wish my father loved me less. Maybe then he'd back off, let me make my own choices. I tell Perry that having no choice, having no say about what I do or who I am, makes me crazy. That's why I put more thought, obsessive thought, into the few choices I do have. What I wear, what I eat, who I call my friends. He nods. He gets it. At last, in Perry, I have a friend with whom I can share these deep thoughts, a friend I can tell about the Winchell's locks in my life. I talk to Perry about playing tennis, despite hating tennis, hating school, despite enjoying books, feeling lucky to have Philly, despite his streak of bad luck. Perry listens, patient as Philly, but more involved. Perry doesn't just talk, then listen, then nod. He converses. He analyzes, strategizes, spitballs, helps me come up with a plan to make things better. When I tell Perry my problems, they sound jumbled and asinine at first, but Perry has a way of rearranging them, making them sound logical, which feels like the first step to making them solvable. I feel as if I've been on a desert island with no one to talk to but the palm trees, and now a thoughtful, sensitive, like-minded castaway, albeit with a stupid polo player on his shirt, has come stumbling ashore. Perry confides in me about his nose and mouth. He says he was born with a cleft palate. He says it's made him deeply self-conscious and painfully shy with girls. He's had surgeries to fix it and faces one more surgery at least. I tell him it's not that noticeable. He gets tears in his eyes. He mumbles something about his father blaming him. Most conversations with Perry eventually lead to fathers, and from fathers it's a quick segue to the future. We talk about the men we're going to be once we're rid of our fathers. We promise each other that we'll be different, not just from our fathers, but from all the men we knew, even the ones we see in the movies. We make a pact that we'll never do drugs or drink alcohol, and when we're rich, we vow we'll do what we can to help the world. We shake on it. A secret handshake. Perry has a long way to go to get rich. He never has a dime. Everything we do is my treat. I don't have much, a modest allowance, plus what I hustle from guests at the casinos and hotels, but I don't care. What's mine is Perry's, because I've decided that Perry is my new best friend. My father gives me $5 every day for food, and I freely spend half on Perry. We meet every afternoon at Cambridge. After goofing off, hitting a few balls around, we go for a snack. We slip out the back door, hop the wall, and race across the vacant lot to 7-Eleven, where we play video games and eat chipwiches, paid for by me until it's time to go home. A chipwich is a new ice cream sandwich Perry recently discovered. Vanilla ice cream pressed between two doughy chocolate chip cookies. It's the greatest food in the world, according to Perry, who's a raging addict. He loves chipwiches more than talking. He can talk for an hour about the beauty of the chipwich, and yet a chipwich is one of the few things that can get him to stop talking. I buy him chipwiches by the dozens, and I feel sorry for him that he doesn't have enough money to feed his habit. We're at 7-Eleven one day when Perry stops chewing his chipwich and looks up at the wall clock. "Shit, Andre, we better get back to Cambridge. My mother's coming early to get me." "Your mother?" "Yeah, she said to be ready and waiting out front." We haul ass across the vacant lot. "Uh-oh," Perry shouts. "There she is." I look up the street and see two cars cruising toward Cambridge, a Volkswagen Bug and a convertible Rolls-Royce. I see the Bug keep going past Cambridge, and I tell Perry to relax. We have time. She missed the turn. "No," Perry says. Come on, come on." He turns on the jets, spinning after the Rolls. "Hey, what the... Perry, are you kidding? Your mom drives a Rolls? Are you rich?" "I guess so." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You never asked." For me, that's the definition of being rich. It doesn't cross your mind to mention it to your best friend. And money is such a given, you don't care how you come by it. Perry, however, is more than rich. Perry is super rich. Perry is Richie rich. His father, a senior partner at a major law firm, owns a local TV station. He sells air, Perry says. Imagine selling air. When you can sell air, man, you've got it made. Presumably his father gives him air for an allowance. My father finally lets me visit Perry's house, and I discover that he doesn't live in a house, in fact, but a mega mansion. His mother drives us there in the Rolls, and my eyes get big as we pass slowly up a massive front drive, around green rolling hills, then under enormous shade trees. We stop outside a place that looks like Bruce Wayne's stately manor. One entire wing is set aside for Perry, including a teenager's dream room, featuring a ping-pong table, pool table, poker table, big screen TV, mini fridge, and drum set. Down a long highway lies Perry's bedroom, the walls of which are covered with dozens and dozens of Sports Illustrated covers. My head rotating on a swivel, I look at all the portraits of great athletes, and I can only say one word: whoa. Did this all by myself, Perry says. The next time I'm at the dentist, I tear off the covers of all the Sports Illustrateds in the waiting room and stash them under my jacket. When I hand them to Perry, he shakes his head. No, I have this one. And this one. I have them all, Andre. I have a subscription. Oh, okay, sorry. It's not just that I've never met a rich kid. I've also never met a kid with a subscription. If we're not hanging out at Cambridge or at his mansion, Perry and I are talking on the phone. We're inseparable. He's crushed, therefore, when I tell him I'm going away for a month to play a series of tournaments in Australia. McDonald's is putting together a team of America's elite juniors, sending us to play Australia's best. A whole month? I know, but I have no choice. My father. I'm not being entirely truthful. I'm one of only 2 12-year-olds selected, so I'm honored, excited, if slightly on edge about traveling so far from home. The plane ride is 14 hours. For Perry's sake, I downplay the trip. I tell him not to worry. I'll be back in no time, and we'll have a Chipwich feast. I fly alone to Los Angeles, and upon landing, I want to go straight back to Vegas. I'm scared. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go or how to find my way through the airport. I feel as if I'm sick out in my warm-up suit with the McDonald's golden arches on the back and my name on the chest. Now, off in the distance, I see a group of kids wearing the same warm-up suit. My team. I approach the one adult in the group and introduce myself. He flashes a big smile. He's the coach, my first real coach. Agassi, he says. The hot shot from Vegas? Hey, glad to have you aboard. During the flight to Australia, Coach stands in the aisle telling us how the trip is going to work. We're going to play 5 tournaments in different cities. The most important tournament, however, will be the 3rd in Sydney. That's where we'll pit our best against the best Australians. There should be 5,000 fans in the arena, he says, plus it's going to be televised throughout Australia. Talk about pressure. But here's the good news, Coach says. Every time you win a tournament, I'll let you have 1 cold beer. I win my first tournament in Adelaide, no problem, and on the bus, Coach hands me an ice-cold Foster's Lager. I think of Perry and our pact. I think of how strange it is that I'm 12 and being served booze. But the beer can looks so frosty cold, and my teammates are watching. Also, I'm thousands of miles from home. Fuck it. I take a sip. Delicious. I drain it in 4 gulps, then wrestle with my guilty conscience the rest of the afternoon. I stare out the window as the outback crawls by, and I wonder how Perry will take the news, if he'll stop being my friend. I win 3 of the next 4 tournaments, 3 more beers, each more delicious than the last, but with every sip I taste the bitter dregs of guilt. Perry and I fall right back into our old routine. Horror movies, long talks, Cambridge, 7-Eleven, Chipwiches. Every now and then, however, I look at him and feel the weight of my betrayal. We're walking from Cambridge to 7-Eleven, and I can't hold it in any longer. The guilt is eating away at me. We're each wearing headphones plugged into Perry's Walkman, listening to Prince's Purple Rain. I tap Perry on the shoulder and tell him to take off his headphones. What's up? I don't know how to say this. He stares. What is it? Perry, I broke our pact. No, I had a beer in Australia. Just 1? 4. 4? I look down. He thinks. He stares off at the mountains. Well, he says, we make choices in life, Andre, and you've made yours. I guess that leaves me on my own. But a few minutes later, he's curious. He asks how the beers tasted, and again, I can't lie. I tell him they were great. I apologize again, but there's no point in pretending to be remorseful. Perry's right. I had a choice, for once, and I made it. Sure, I wish I hadn't broken our pact, but I can't feel bad about finally exercising free will. Perry frowns like a father, not like my father or his father, but like a TV father. He looks as if he should be wearing a cardigan sweater and smoking a pipe. I realize that the pact Perry and I made at its root was a promise to become each other's fathers, to raise each other. I apologize once more, and I realize how much I missed Perry while I was gone. I make another pact with myself that I won't leave home again. My father accosts me in the kitchen. He says we need to talk. I wonder if he heard about the beer. He tells me to sit at the table. He sits across from me. An unfinished Norman Rockwell separates us. He describes a story he caught recently on 60 Minutes. It was all about a tennis boarding school on the west coast of Florida, near Tampa Bay. The first school of its kind, my father says, a boot camp for young tennis players. It's run by a former paratrooper named Nick Bolletieri. So you're going there. What? You're not getting any better here in Las Vegas. You've beaten all the local boys. You've beaten all the boys in the West. Andre, you've beaten all the players at the local college. I have nothing left to teach you. My father doesn't say the words, but it's obvious he's determined to do things differently with me. He doesn't want to repeat the mistakes he made with my siblings. He ruined their games by holding on too long, too tight, and in the process he ruined his relationship with them. Things got so bad with Rita that she's recently run off with Pancho Gonzalez, the tennis legend, who's at least 30 years her senior. My father doesn't want to limit me, or break me, or ruin me, so he's banishing me. He's sending me away, partly protect me from himself. Andre, he says, you've got to eat, sleep, and drink tennis. It's the only way you're going to be number one. I already eat, sleep, and drink tennis, but he wants me to do my eating, sleeping, drinking elsewhere. How much does this tennis academy cost? About $12,000 a year. We can't afford that. You're only going for 3 months. That's $3,000. We can't afford that either. It's an investment in you. We'll find a way. I don't want to go. I can see from my father's face it's settled. End of story. I try to look on the bright side. It's only 3 months. I can take anything for 3 months. Also, how bad could it be? Maybe it will be like Australia. Maybe it will be fun. Maybe there will be unforeseen benefits. Maybe it will feel like playing for a team. What about school? I ask. I'm in the middle of 7th grade. There's a school in the next town, my father says. You'll go in the morning for half a day, then play tennis all afternoon and into the night. Sounds grueling. A short time later, my mother tells me that the 60 Minutes report was actually an expose on this bolletieri character, who was in essence running a tennis sweatshop that employed child labor. They give a goodbye party for me at Cambridge. Mr. Fong looks glum. Perry looks suicidal. My father looks uncertain. We stand around eating cake. We play tennis with the balloons, then pop them with pins. Everyone pats me on the back and says what a blast I'm going to have. I know, I say. Can't wait to mix it up with all those Florida kids. The lie sounds like a deliberate miss, like a ball off the wooden rim of my racket. As the day of my departure draws closer, I don't sleep well. I wake up thrashing, sweating, twisted up in the sheets. I can't eat. All at once, the concept of homesickness makes perfect sense. I don't want to leave my home, my siblings, my mother, my best friend. Despite the tension of my home, the occasional terror, I'd give anything to stay. For all the pain my father has caused me, the one constant has been his presence. He's always been there, at my back, and now he won't be. I feel abandoned. I thought the one thing I wanted was to be free of him, and now that he's sending me away, I'm heartbroken. I spend my last days at home hoping that my mother will come to my rescue. I look at her imploringly, but she looks back with a face that says, I've seen him break 3 kids. You're lucky to be getting out while you're whole. My father drives me to the airport. My mother wants to go but can't miss a day of work. Perry takes her place. He doesn't stop talking the whole way. I can't decide if he's trying to cheer me up or himself. It's only 3 months, he says. We'll write letters, postcards. You'll see. It's going to be fine. You're going to learn so much. Maybe I'll even come visit. I think about Visiting Hours, the cheesy horror movie we saw the night our friendship was born. Perry is acting now the way he acted then, the way he always reacts to fear, twitching, jumping out of his seat, and I'm reacting in my typical way, a cat thrown into a room full of dogs. Chapter 5. The airport shuttle pulls into the compound just after sunset. The Nick Bolletieri Tennis Academy, built on an old tomato farm, is nothing fancy, just a few outbuildings that look like cell blocks. They're named like cell blocks, too. B building, C building. I look around, half expecting to find a guard tower and razor wire. More ominously, stretching off into the distance, I see row after row of tennis courts. As the sun sinks behind the inky black marshes, the temperature plummets. I huddle into my t-shirt. I thought Florida was supposed to be hot. A staff member greets me as I step out of the van and marches me straight to my barracks, which are empty and eerily quiet. Where is everyone? Study hall, he says. In a few minutes, it'll be free hour. That's the hour between study hall and bedtime. Why don't you go down to the rec center and introduce yourself to the others? In the rec center, I find 200 wild boys, plus a few tough-looking girls, separated into tight cliques. One of the largest cliques is pressed around a Nerf ping-pong table, screaming insults at two boys playing. I press my back against a wall and scan the room. I recognize a few faces, including one or two from the Australia trip. The kid over there, I played him in California. That evil-looking homie right there, I played a tough three-setter against him in Arizona. Everyone looks talented, supremely confident. The kids are all colors, all sizes, all ages, and from all around the world. The youngest is 7, the oldest 19. After ruling Las Vegas my whole life, I'm now a tiny fish in a vast pond, or marsh. And the biggest of the big fish are the best players in the country, teenage supermen who form the tightest clique in a far corner. I try to watch the ping-pong game. Even there I'm outclassed. Back home, nobody could beat me at Nerf ping-pong. Here, half these guys would cream me. I can't imagine how I'll ever fit in this joint, how I'll make friends. I want to go home right now, or at least phone home, but I'd have to call collect, and I know my father wouldn't accept the charges. Just knowing I can't hear my mother's voice, or Philly's, no matter how much I need to, makes me feel panicky. When free hour ends, I hurry back to the barracks and lie on my bunk, waiting to disappear into the black marsh of sleep. 3 months, I tell myself. Just 3 months. People like to call the Bolletieri Academy a boot camp, but it's really a glorified prison camp. And not all that glorified. We eat gruel, beige meats and gelatinous stews and gray slop poured over rice, and sleep in rickety bunks that line the plywood walls of our military-style barracks. We rise at dawn and go to bed soon after dinner. We rarely leave, and we have scant contact with the outside world. Like most prisoners, we do nothing but sleep and work, and our main rock pile is drills. Serve drills, net drills, backhand drills, forehand drills, with occasional match play to establish the pecking order, strong to weak. Sometimes it feels as though we're gladiators, preparing underneath the Colosseum. Certainly the 35 instructors who bark at us during drills think of themselves as slave drivers. When we're not drilling, we're studying the psychology of tennis. We take classes on mental toughness, positive thinking, and visualization. We're taught to close our eyes and picture ourselves winning Wimbledon, hoisting that gold trophy above our heads. Then we go to aerobics or weight training, or out to the crushed shell track where we run until we drop. The constant pressure, the cutthroat competition, the total lack of adult supervision, it slowly turns us into animals. The kind of jungle law prevails. It's Karate Kid with rackets, Lord of the Flies with forehands. One night, 2 boys get into an argument in the barracks, a white boy and an Asian boy. The white boy uses a racial slur, then walks out. For a full hour, the Asian boy stands in the middle of the barracks, stretching, shaking out his legs legs and arms, rolling his neck. He runs through a progression of judo moves, then carefully, methodically, tapes his ankles. When the white boy returns, the Asian boy spins, whipsaws his leg through the air, and unleashes a kick that shatters the white boy's jaw. The shocking part is that neither boy gets expelled, which greatly adds to the overall sense of anarchy. Another two boys have a low-grade, long-running feud. It's mostly taunts, teases, minor stuff, until one boy ups the ante. For days, he urinates and defecates into a bucket. Then, late one night, he bursts into the other boy's barracks and dumps the bucket on his head. The jungle feeling, the constant threat of violence and ambush, is reinforced just before lights out by the sound of drums in the distance. I ask one of the boys, "What the hell is that?" "Oh, that's just Courier. He likes to pound a drum set his parents sent him." "Who?" "Jim Courier, from Florida." Within days, I get my first glimpse of the warden, founder and owner of the Nick Bolletieri Tennis Academy. He's 50-something, but looks 250 because tanning is one of his obsessions, along with tennis and getting married. He's got 5 or 6 ex-wives, no one is quite sure. He soaked up so much sun, baked himself so deeply beneath so many ultraviolet sun lamps, he's permanently altered his pigmentation. The one portion of his face that isn't the color of beef jerky is his mustache, a black, meticulously trimmed quasi-goatee, only without the chin hair, so it looks like a permanent frown. I see Nick striding across the compound, an angry red man in wraparound shades, berating someone who jogs alongside, trying to keep pace, and I pray that I never have to deal with Nick directly. I watch as he slides into a red Ferrari and zooms away, leaving a dorsal fin of dust in his wake. A boy tells me it's our job to keep Nick's 4 sports cars washed and polished. Our job? That's bullshit. Tell it to the judge. I asked some of the older boys, some of the veterans, about Nick. Who is he? What makes him tick? They say he's a hustler, a guy who makes a very nice living off tennis, but he doesn't love the game or even know it all that well. He's not like my father, captivated by the angles and numbers and beauty of tennis. Then again, he's just like my father. He's captivated by cash. He's a guy who flunked the exam for Navy pilots, dropped out of law school, then landed one day on the idea of teaching tennis. Stepped in shit. Through a bit of hard work and a ton of luck, he's turned himself into this image of a tennis titan, mentor to prodigies. You can learn a few things from him, the other kids say, but he's no miracle worker. He doesn't sound like a guy who can make me stop hating the game. I'm playing a practice match, putting a fairly good whooping on a kid from the East Coast when I become aware that Gabrielle, one of Nick's henchmen, is behind me staring. After a few more points, Gabrielle stops the match. He asks, "Has Nick seen you play yet?" "No, sir." He frowns, walks off. Later, over the loudspeaker that carries across all the courts of the Bolletieri Academy, I hear, "Andre Agassi to the Indoor Supreme Court. Andre Agassi, report to the Indoor Supreme Court immediately." I've never been to the Indoor Supreme Court, and I can't imagine there's a good reason for my being summoned now. I run there and find Gabriel and Nick standing shoulder to shoulder, waiting. Gabriel says to Nick, "You've got to see this kid hit." Nick strolls off into the shadows. Gabriel gets on the other side of the net. He puts me through drills for half an hour. I sneak occasional glances over my shoulder. I can vaguely make out the silhouette of Nick, concentrating, stroking his mustache. "Hit some backhands," Nick says. His voice is like sandpaper on Velcro. I do as I'm told. I hit backhands. "Now hit some serves." I serve. "Come to the net." I come to the net. "That's enough." He steps forward. "Where are you from?" "Las Vegas." "What's your national ranking?" "Number 3. "How do I reach your father?" "He's at work. He works nights at the MGM." "How about your mother?" "At this hour, she's probably at home." "Come with me." We walk slowly to his office, where he asks for my home number. He's sitting in a tall black leather chair, turned almost away from me. My face feels redder than his face looks. He dials and speaks to my mother. She gives him my father's number. He dials again. He's yelling, "Mr. Agassi, Nick Bolletieri here." Right. Yes, well, listen to me. I'm going to tell you something very important. Your boy has more talent than anybody I've ever seen come through this academy. That's right, ever. And I'm going to take him to the top. What the hell is he talking about? I'm only here for 3 months. I'm leaving here in 64 days. Is Nick saying he wants me to stay here? Live here? Forever? Surely my father won't go for that. Nick says, "That's right. No, that's no issue. I'm going to make it so you won't pay a penny. Andre can stay, free of charge. I'm tearing up your check." My heart sinks. I know my father can't resist anything free. My fate is sealed. Nick hangs up and spins toward me in his chair. He doesn't explain. He doesn't console. He doesn't ask if this is what I want. He doesn't say a thing besides, "Go back to the courts." The warden has tacked several years to my sentence, and there's nothing to be done but pick up my hammer and return to the rock pile. Every day at the Bolletieri Academy starts with the stench. The surrounding hills are home to several orange processing plants, which give off a toxic smell of burned orange peels. It's the first thing that hits me when I open my eyes, a reminder that this is real. I'm not back in Vegas. I'm not in my deuce court bed, dreaming. I've never cared much for orange juice, but after the Bolletieri Academy, I'll never be able to look at a gallon of Minute Maid again. As the sun clears the marshes, burning off the morning mist, I hurry to beat the other boys into the shower, because only the first boys get hot water. Actually, it's not a shower, just a tiny nozzle that shoots a narrow jet of painful needles, which hardly gets you wet, let alone clean. Then we all rush to breakfast, served in a cafeteria so chaotic, it's like a mental hospital where the nurses forgot to hand out the meds. But you'd better get there early or it might be worse. The butter will be filled with everyone else's crumbs, the bread will be gone, the plastic eggs will be ice. Straight from breakfast, we board a bus for school. Bradenton Academy, 26 minutes away. I divide my time between 2 academies, both prisons. But Bradenton Academy makes me more claustrophobic because it makes less sense. At the Bolletieri Academy, at least I'm learning something about tennis. At Bradenton Academy, the only thing I learn is that I'm stupid. Bradenton Academy has warped floors, dirty carpets, and a color scheme that's 14 shades of gray. There isn't one window in the building, so the light is fluorescent and the air is stale, filled with a medley of foul odors, chiefly vomit, toilet, and fear. It's almost worse than the scorched orange smell back at the Bolletieri Academy. Other kids, non-tennis kids from town, don't seem to mind. Some actually thrive at Bradenton Academy, maybe because their life schedules are manageable. They don't balance school with careers as semi-pro athletes. They don't contend with waves of homesickness that rise and fall like nausea. They spend 7 hours a day in class, then go home to eat dinner and watch TV with their families. Those of us who commute from the Bolletieri Academy, however, spend 4.5 hours in class, then board the bus for the long slog back to our full-time jobs, hitting balls until after dusk, at which time we collapse in heaps on our wooden bunks to grab a half hour of rest before returning to the original state of nature that is the rec center. Then we nod over our textbooks for a few futile hours before free hour and lights out. We're always behind on schoolwork and falling ever further behind. The system is rigged, guaranteed to produce bad students as quickly and efficiently as it produces good tennis players. I don't like anything that's rigged, so I don't give much effort. I don't study. I don't do homework. I don't pay attention. And I don't give a damn. In every class, I sit quietly at my desk, staring at my feet, wishing I were somewhere else, while the teacher drones on about Shakespeare or Bunker Hill or the Pythagorean theorem. The teachers don't care that I've turned them out because I'm one of Nick's boys, and they don't want to cross Nick. Bradenton Academy exists because the Bolletieri Academy keeps sending it a bus full of paying customers every semester. The teachers know that their jobs depend on Nick, so they can't flunk us, and we cherish our special status. We feel a lordly sense of entitlement, never realizing that the thing to which we're most entitled is the thing we're not getting, an education. Inside the metal front doors of Bradenton Academy stands the office, the nerve center of the school and the source of much pain. Report cards and threatening letters emanate from the office. Bad boys are sent there. The office is also the lair of Ms. G and Doc G, married co-principals of Bradenton Academy, and I suspect frustrated sideshow performers. Miss G is a gangly woman with no midsection. She looks as if her shoulders have been set directly on her hips. She tries to disguise this odd shape by wearing skirts, but this only accentuates the problem. On her face, she wears 2 gobs of blush and 1 smear of lipstick, a symmetrical triad of 3 circles that she color coordinates the way other people do their shoes and belt. Her cheeks and mouth always match and always almost distract you from the lump in her back. Nothing Miss G wears, however, can distract you from her gargantuan hands. She has mitts the size of rackets, and the first time she shakes my hand, I think I might faint. Old Doc G is half her size, but has just as many body issues. It's not hard to see what they first found in common. Frail, gamey, Dr. G has a right arm that's been shriveled since birth. He ought to hide his arm, keep it behind his back or shoved in a pocket. Instead, he waves it around, brandishes it like a weapon. He likes to take students aside for one-on-one chats, and whenever he does so, he swings his bad arm up onto the student's shoulder, sitting it there until he's said his piece. If this doesn't give you the heebie-jeebies, nothing will. Doc G's arm feels like a pork tenderloin lying on your shoulder, and hours later, you can still feel it there, and you can't help but shiver. Ms. G and Doc G have instituted dozens of rules at Bradenton Academy, and one of the most strictly enforced is their ban on jewelry. Thus, I go out of my way to pierce my ears. It's an easy show of rebellion, which, as I see it, is my last resort. Rebellion is the thing I get to choose every day, and this rebellion comes with the added bonus that it represents a little neat fuck you to my father, who's always hated earrings on men. Many times I've heard my father say that earrings equal homosexuality. I can't wait for him to see mine. I buy both studs and dangly hoops. He'll finally regret sending me thousands of miles from home and leaving me here to be corrupted. I make a feeble and insincere effort to hide my new accessory, wrapping a Band-Aid around it. Miss G notices, of course, just as I hoped she would. She pulls me out of class and confronts me. "Mr. Agassi, what is the meaning of that bandage?" I hurt my ear. "Hurt your... Don't be ridiculous. Remove that Band-Aid." I pull off the Band-Aid. She sees the stud and gasps. "We do not allow earrings at Bradenton Academy, Mr. Agassi. The next time I see you, I will expect the Band-Aid gone and the earring out." By the end of the first semester, I'm close to failing all my classes. Except English. I show a strange aptitude for literature, especially poetry. Memorizing famous poems, writing original poems, it comes easily to me. We're assigned to write a short verse about our daily lives, and I set mine proudly on the teacher's desk. She likes it. She reads it aloud in class. Some of the other kids later ask me to ghostwrite their homework. I dash off their assignments on the bus, no problem. The English teacher detains me after class and says I have real talent. I smile. It's different from being told by Nick that I have talent. This feels like something I'd like to pursue. For a moment, I imagined what it would be like to do something besides playing tennis, something I choose. Then I go to my next class, math, and the dream dies in a cloud of algebra formula. I'm not cut out to be a scholar. The math teacher's voice sounds as if it's coming from miles away. The next class, French, is worse. I'm très stupide. I transfer to Spanish, where I'm muy estupido. Spanish, I think, might actually shorten my life. The boredom, the confusion might cause me to expire in my chair. They will find me one day in my seat, muerto. Gradually, school goes from being hard to being physically harmful. The anxiety of boarding the bus, the 26-minute ride, the inevitable confrontation with Miss G or Doc G actually make me ill. What I dread most is the moment, the daily moment, when I'm exposed as a loser, an academic loser. So great is this dread that over time Bradenton Academy modifies my view of the Bolletieri Academy. I look forward to all those drills and even the high-pressure tournaments because at least I'm not at school. Thanks to one particularly big tournament, I miss a major history test at Bradenton Academy, a test I was sure to fail. I celebrate this dodging of a bullet by eviscerating my opponents, but when I return to school, my teacher says I have to take a makeup. The injustice! I skulk down to the office for the makeup test. Along the way, I duck into a dark corner and prepare a cheat sheet, which I stash in my pocket. There is only one other student in the office, a red-haired girl with a fat, sweaty face. She doesn't blink, doesn't register my presence in any way. She seems to be in a coma. I fill out the test fast, copying from my cheat sheet. Suddenly, I feel a pair of eyes on me. I look up, and the red-haired girl is out of her coma, staring. She closes her book and strolls out. Quickly, I shove the cheat sheet into the crotch of my underwear. I tear another sheet of paper from my notebook, and imitating a girlish handwriting, I write, "I think you're cute. Give me a call." I shove the paper in my front pocket just as Miss G storms in. "Pencil down," she says. "What's up, Miss G?" "Are you cheating?" "On what? This? If I were going to cheat on something, it wouldn't be this. I've got this history stuff down cold. Valley Forge, Paul Revere, piece of cake. Empty your pockets." I lay out a few coins, a pack of gum, the note from my imaginary admirer. Miss G picks up the note and reads under her breath. I say, "I'm thinking about what I should write back. Any ideas?" She scowls, walks out. I pass the test and chalk it up as a moral victory. My English teacher is my only advocate. She's also the daughter of Mrs. G and Doc G, so she pleads with her parents that I'm smarter than my grades and my behavior indicate. She even arranges an IQ test, and the results confirm her opinion. "Andre," she says, "you need to apply yourself. Prove it to Mrs. G that you're not who she thinks you are." I tell her that I am applying myself, that I'm doing as well as I can under the circumstances. But I'm tired all the time from playing tennis and distracted by the pressure of tournaments and so-called challenges. Especially the challenges. Once a month we place someone above us in the pecking order. I'd like any teacher to explain how you're supposed to concentrate on conjugating verbs or solving for X when you're stealing yourself a 5-set brawl with some punk from Orlando that afternoon. I don't tell her everything because I can't. I'd feel like a sissy talking about my fear of school, the countless times I sit in class drenched in sweat. I can't tell her about my trouble concentrating, my horror of being called on, how this horror sometimes morphs into an air bubble in my lower intestine, which grows and grows until I need to run to the bathroom. Between classes, I'm often locked in a toilet stall. Then there's the social anxiety, the doomed effort to fit in. At Bradenton Academy, fitting in takes money. Most of the kids are fashion plates, whereas I have 3 pairs of jeans, 5 t-shirts, 2 pairs of tennis shoes, and 1 cotton crew neck with gray and black squares. In class, rather than thinking about the scarlet letter, I'm thinking about how many days per week I can get away with wearing my sweater, worrying about what I'll do when the weather gets warm. The worse I do in school, the more I rebel. I drink, I smoke pot, I act like an ass. I'm dimly aware of the inverse ratio between my grades and my rebellion, but I don't dwell on it. I prefer Nick's theory. He says I don't do well in school because I have a hard-on for the world. It might be the only thing he's ever said about me that's halfway accurate. He typically describes me as a cocky showboater who seeks the limelight. Even my father knows me better than that. My general demeanor does feel like a hard-on, violent, involuntary, unstoppable, and so I accept it as I accept the many changes in my body. Finally, when my grades hit bottom, my rebellion reaches the breaking point. I walk into a hair salon in the Bradenton Mall and tell the stylist to give me a mohawk, razor the sides, shave them to the scalp, and leave just one thick strip of spiked hair down the middle. Are you sure, kid? I want it high and I want it spiky, then dye it pink. He works his shearer back and forth for 8 minutes. Then he says, "All done," and spins me around in the chair. I look in the mirror. The earring was good. This is better. I can't wait to see the look on Mrs. G's face. Outside the mall, while I wait for the bus back to the Bolletieri Academy, no one recognizes me. Kids I play with, kids I bunk with, they look right past me. To the casual observer, I've done something that seems like a desperate effort to stand out, but in fact, I've rendered myself, my inner self, my true self, invisible. At least, that was the idea. I fly home for Christmas, and as the plane approaches the Strip, as the casinos below the canting right wing twinkle like a row of Christmas trees, the flight attendant says we're stuck in a holding pattern. Groans. "Since we know you're all itching to hit the casinos," she says, "we thought it might be fun to do a little gambling till we're clear to land. Cheers. Let's everybody take out $1 and put it in this airsick bag. Then write your seat number on your ticket stub and throw it in this other airsick bag. We'll pull out one ticket stub and that person will win the jackpot." She collects everyone's dollar while another flight attendant collects the ticket stubs. Now she stands at the head of the plane and reaches in the bag. "And the grand prize goes to, drum roll please, 9F. I'm 9F. I won. I stand and wave. The passengers turn and see me. More groans. Great. The kid with the pink mohawk won. The flight attendant reluctantly hands me the airsick bag full of 96 ones. I spend the rest of the flight counting and recounting them, thanking my lucky stars for this horseshoe up my ass. My father, as expected, is horrified by my hair and earring, but he refuses to blame himself or the Bolletieri Academy. He won't admit that sending me away was a mistake, and he won't stand for any talk of my coming home. He simply asks if I'm a faggot. "No," I say, then go to my room. Philly follows. He compliments my new look. Even a mohawk beats bald. I tell him about my windfall on the airplane. "Whoa, what are you going to do with all that cash?" Thinking about spending it on an ankle bracelet for Jamie. She's a girl who goes to school with Perry. She let me kiss her the last time I was home. But I don't know. I desperately need new clothes for school. I can't make it much farther with one gray-black sweater. I want to fit in. Philly nods. "Tough call, bro." He doesn't ask why. If I want to fit in, I got a mohawk and an earring. He treats my dilemma as serious, my contradictions as coherent, and helps me work through the options. We decide that I should spend the money on the girlfriend, forget about the new clothes. The moment I have the anklet in my hands, however, I'm filled with regret. I picture myself back in Florida, rotating my few articles of clothing. I tell Philly, and he gives a half nod. In the morning, I open one eye and find Philly hovering over me, grinning. He's staring at my chest. I look down and find a stack of bills. "What's this?" "Went out and played cards last night, bro. Hit a lucky streak. Won $600. "So, what's this?" $300. Go buy yourself some sweaters." During spring break, my father wants me to play semi-pro tournaments called satellites, which are open qualification, meaning anyone can show up and play at least one match. They're held in out-of-the-way towns, way out of the way, burgs like Monroe, Louisiana, and St. Joe, Missouri. I can't travel by myself. I'm just 14. So my father sends Philly along to chaperone me, also to play. Philly and my father still cling to the belief that he can do something with his tennis. Philly rents a beige Omni, which quickly becomes a mobile version of our bedroom back home. One side his, one side mine. We lug thousands of miles, stopping only for fast food joints, tournament sites, and sleep. Our lodging is free because in every town we stay with strangers, local families who volunteer to host players. Most of the hosts are pleasant enough, but they're overly enthusiastic about the game. It's awkward enough to stay with strangers, but it's a chore to make tennis talk over pancakes and coffee. For me, that is. Philly will talk to anyone, and I often have to nudge and pull him when it's time to go. Philly and I both feel like outlaws, living on the road, doing whatever we please. We throw fast food wrappers over our shoulders into the back seat. We listen to loud music, curse all we want, say whatever is on our minds, without fear of being corrected or ridiculed. Still, we never mention our very different goals for this trip. Philly wants only to earn 1 ATP point, just one, so he can know what it feels like to be ranked. I want only to avoid playing Philly, in which case I'll have to beat my beloved brother again. At the first satellite, I rout my opponent, and Philly gets routed by his. Afterward, in the rental car, in the parking garage beside the stadium, Philly stares at the steering wheel, looking stunned. For some reason, this loss hurt more than the others. He balls his fist and punches the steering wheel, hard, then punches it again. He begins talking to himself, so low that I can't hear. Now he's talking louder. Now he's shouting, calling himself a born loser, hitting the steering wheel again and again. He's hammering the wheel so hard that I'm sure he's going to break a bone in his hand. I think of our father, shadowboxing the steering wheel after knocking out the trucker. Philly says, "It would be better if I broke my fucking fist. At least then it would all be over. Dad was right. I am a born loser." All at once he stops. He looks at me and becomes resigned, calm, like our mother. He smiles. The storm has passed. The poison is gone. "I feel better," he says with a laugh and a snuffle. Driving out of the parking garage, he gives me pointers on my next opponent. Days after I return to the Bolletieri Academy, I'm at the Bradenton Mall. I take a chance and place a collect call home. "Phew," Philly answers. He sounds the way he did in the parking garage. "So," he says, "we got a letter from the ATP. Yeah? You want to know your ranking?" "I don't know, do I?" "You're number 610. Really? 610 in the world, bro. Which means there are only 609 people better than me in the entire world. On planet Earth, in the solar system, I'm number 610. I slap the wall of the phone booth and shout for joy. The line is silent, then a kind of whisper. Philly asks, "How does it feel?" I can't believe how thoughtless I've been, shouting in Philly's ear when he must feel bitterly disappointed. I wish I could throw half of my ATP points on his chest. In a tone of supreme boredom, stifling a pretend yawn, I tell him, "You know what? It's no big deal. It's overrated." Chapter 6. What more can I do? Nick, Gabriel, Mrs. G, Doc G, no one seems to notice my antics anymore. I've mutilated my hair, grown my nails, including one pinky nail that's 2 inches long and painted fire engine red. I've pierced my body, broken rules, busted curfew, picked fist fights, thrown tantrums, cut classes, even slipped into the girls' barracks after hours. I've consumed gallons of whiskey, often while sitting brazenly atop my bunk, and as an extra dash of audacity, I've built a pyramid from my dead soldiers. A 3-foot tower of empty Jack Daniels bottles. I chew tobacco, hardcore weed like Skoal and Kodiak, soaked in whiskey. After losses, I stick a plum-sized wad of chew inside my cheek. The bigger the loss, the bigger the wad. What rebellion is left? What new sin can I commit to show the world I'm unhappy and want to go home? Each week, the only time I'm not plotting rebellion is free hour, when I can goof off in the rec center, or Saturday night when I can go to the Bradenton Mall and flirt with girls. That adds up to 10 hours per week that I'm happy, or at least not racking my brain to think up some new form of civil disobedience. When I'm still 14, the Bolletieri Academy hires a bus and ships us upstate to a major tournament in Pensacola. The Bolletieri Academy travels several times each year to tournaments like this one throughout Florida because Nick thinks they're good tests. Measuring sticks, he calls them. Florida is tennis heaven, Nick says, and if we're better than Florida's best, then we must be tops in the world. I have no trouble reaching the final in my bracket, but the other kids don't fare as well. They all get knocked out early. Thus, they're all forced to gather and watch my match. They have no choice, nowhere else to go. When I'm done, we'll get back on the bus en masse and drive the 12 hours home to the Bolletieri Academy. Take your time, the kids joke. No one is eager to spend 12 more hours on that slow, stinky bus. For laughs, I decide to play the match in jeans. Not tennis shorts, not warm-up pants, but torn, faded, dirty dungarees. I know it won't affect the outcome. The kid I'm playing is a chump. I can beat him with one hand tied behind my back, wearing a gorilla costume. For good measure, I pencil on some eyeliner and put it in my gaudiest earrings. I win the match in straight sets. The other kids cheer wildly. They award me bonus points for style. On the ride back to the Bolletieri Academy, I get extra attention, slaps on the back, and attaboys. I feel at last as though I'm fitting in, becoming one of the cool kids, one of the alphas. Plus, I got the W. The next day, right after lunch, Nick calls a surprise meeting. Everyone gather around, he bellows. He directs us to a back court with bleachers. When all 200 full-time kids are settled in and quiet, he starts pacing before us, talking about what the Bolletieri Academy means, how we should feel privileged to be here. He built this place from nothing, he says, and he's proud to have it bear his name. The Bolletieri Academy stands for excellence. The Bolletieri Academy stands for class. The Bolletieri Academy is known and respected the world over. He pauses. Andre, would you stand up for a minute? I stand. All that I've just said about this place, Andre, you have violated. You have defiled this place, shamed it with your little stunt yesterday. Wearing jeans and makeup and earrings during your final? Boy, I'm going to tell you something very important. If you're going to act like that, if you're going to dress like a girl, then here's what I'm going to do. In your next tournament, I'm going to have you wear a skirt. I've contacted Agassi, and I've asked them to send a bunch of skirts for you, and you will wear one, yes sirree, because if that's who you are, then that's how we're going to treat you. All 200 kids are looking at me, 400 eyes fixed tight on me. Many of the kids are laughing. Nick keeps going. Your free time, he says, is hereby revoked. Your free time is now my time. You're on detail, Mr. Agassi. Between 9 and 10, you'll clean every bathroom on the property. When the toilets are scrubbed, you'll police the grounds. If you don't like it, well, it's simple. Leave. If you're going to act like you did yesterday, we don't want you here. If you're incapable of showing that you care about this place as much as we do, bye-bye. The last word, bye-bye, rings out, echoes across the empty courts. That's it, he says. Everyone get back to work. All the kids scurry away. I stand stock still, trying to decide what to do. I could curse out Nick. I could threaten to fight him. I could start bawling. I think of Philly, then Perry. What would they have me do? I think of my father, sent to school in girl clothes when his mother wanted to humiliate him, the day he became a fighter. There is no more time to decide. Gabriel says my punishment begins right now. For the rest of the afternoon, he says, on your knees, weed. At dusk, relieved of my weed sack, I walk to my room. No more indecision. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I throw my clothes in a suitcase and start for the highway. The thought crosses my mind that this is Florida. Any maniac half-wit could pick me up and I'd never be heard from again. But I'd be better off with a maniac half-wit than with Nick. In my wallet I have one credit card, which my father gave me for emergencies, and I'm thinking this is a bona fide code red. I'm headed for the airport. By this time tomorrow, I'll be sitting in Perry's bedroom telling him the story. I keep my eyes peeled for searchlights. I listen for the yelps of distant bloodhounds. I stick out my thumb. A car pulls up. I open the door, wind up to toss my suitcase in the back seat. It's Julio, the disciplinarian on Nick's staff. He says my father is on the phone back at the Bolletieri Academy and wants to speak to me, now. I'd prefer the bloodhounds. I tell my father that I want to come home. I tell him what Nick has done. You dress like a fag, my father says. Sounds like you deserved it. I move to plan B. Pops, I say, Nick's ruining my game. It's all about hitting from the baseline. We never work on my net game. We never work on serve and volley. My father says he'll talk to Nick about my game. He also says Nick has given his assurance that I'll only be punished for a few weeks to prove that Nick is in charge of the place. They can't have one kid flouting the rules. They need to maintain some show of discipline. In conclusion, my father says again that I'm staying. I have no choice. Click, dial tone. Julio shuts the door. Nick takes the receiver from my hand and says my father told him to take away my credit card. No way I'm giving up my credit card. My only means of ever getting out of here? Over my dead body. Nick tries to negotiate with me, and I suddenly realize he needs me. He sent Julio after me. He phoned my father. Now he's trying to get my credit card. He told me to leave, and when I left, he fetched me back. I called his bluff. Despite the trouble I cause, I'm apparently worth something to this guy. By day, I'm the model prisoner. I pick weeds, clean toilets, wear the proper tennis clothes. By night, I'm the masked avenger. I steal a master key to the Bolletieri Academy, and after everyone's asleep, I go marauding with a group of other disgruntled inmates. While I confine my vandalism to minor stuff, like throwing shaving cream bombs, my cohorts spray walls with graffiti, and on the door to Nick's office, they paint Nick the Dick. When Nick has the door repainted, they do it again. My primary cohort on these late-night sprees is Roddy Parks, the boy who beat me that long-ago day when Perry introduced himself. Then Roddy gets caught. His bunkmate drops a dime. I hear that Roddy's been expelled, so now we know what it takes to get expelled. Nick the Dick. To his credit, Roddy takes the fall. He doesn't rat out anyone. Aside from petty vandalism, my main act of insurrection is silence. I vow that, as long as I live, I'll never speak to Nick. This is my code, my religion, my new identity. This is who I am, the boy who won't speak. Nick, of course, doesn't notice. He strolls by the courts and says something to me, and I don't answer. He shrugs. But other kids see me not answer. My status rises. One reason for Nick's oblivion is that he's busy organizing a tournament which he hopes will attract top juniors from throughout the nation. This gives me a great idea, another way to stick it to Nick. I pull aside one of his staff and mention a kid back in Vegas who'd be perfect for the tournament. He's unbelievably talented, I say. He gives me problems whenever we play. What's his name? Perry Rogers. It's like laying fresh bait in a Nick's trap. Nick likes to discover new stars and showcase them in his tournaments. New stars generate buzz. New stars add to the aura of the Bolletieri Academy and bolster Nick's image as the great tennis mentor. Sure enough, days later, Perry receives a plane ticket and a personal invite to the tournament. He flies down to Florida and takes a cab to the Bolletieri Academy. I meet him in the compound, and we throw our arms around each other, cackling at the fast when we're pulling on Nick. Who do I have to play? Murphy Jensen. Oh no, he's great. Don't worry about it. That's not for a few days. For now, let's party. One of the many perks for kids playing in the tournament is a field trip to Busch Gardens in Tampa. On the bus to the amusement park, I bring Perry up to speed, tell him about my public humiliation, describe how miserable I am at the Bolletieri Academy and at Bradenton Academy. I tell him I'm close to failing. That's where I lose him. For once, he's not able to make my problems sound coherent. He loves school. He dreams of attending a fine Eastern college, then law school. I change the subject. I grill him about Jamie. Did she ask about me? How does she look? Does she wear my ankle bracelet? I tell Perry I want to send him back to Vegas with a special present for Jamie. Maybe something nice from Busch Gardens. That would be cool, he agrees. We're not at Busch Gardens 10 minutes before Perry sees a booth filled with stuffed animals. On a high shelf sits an enormous black and white panda, its legs sticking left and right, its tiny red tongue hanging out. Andre, you need to get Jamie that. Well, sure, but it's not for sale. You have to win the grand prize to get that panda, and no one wins this game. It's rigged. I don't like things that are rigged. Nah, you just have to toss 2 rubber rings around the neck of a Coke bottle. We're athletes. We've got this. We try for half an hour, scattering rubber rings all over the booth. Not one ring comes close to lassoing a Coke bottle. Okay, Perry says, here's what we do. You distract the lady running the booth. I'll sneak back there and put 2 of those rings on the bottles. I don't know. What if we get caught? But then I remember it's for Jamie. Anything for Jamie. I call out to the booth lady. Excuse me, ma'am, I have a question. She turns. Yes? I ask something inane about the rules of ring toss. In my peripheral vision, I see Perry tiptoe into the booth. 4 seconds later, he leaps back. I won! I won! The booth lady spins around. She sees 2 Coke bottles with rubber rings around their necks. She looks shocked, then skeptical. Now, wait a minute, kid. I won! Give me my panda! I didn't see... That's your problem if you didn't see. That's not the rule. You have to see. Where does it say you have to see? I want to talk to your supervisor. Get Mr. Busch Gardens himself down here. I'm taking this whole amusement park to court. What kind of jip is this? I paid $1 to play this game, and that's an implied contract. You owe me a panda. I'm suing. My father is suing. You have exactly 3 seconds to get me my panda, which I won fair and fucking square. Perry is doing what he loves, talking. He's doing what his father does, selling air. And the booth lady is doing what she hates, manning a booth at an amusement park. It's no contest. She doesn't want any trouble, and she doesn't need this headache. With a long stick, she snatches down the big panda and forks it over. It's nearly as tall as Perry. He grabs it like a giant chipwich, and we run off before she changes her mind. For the rest of the night, we're a threesome. Perry, me, and the panda. We bring the panda to the snack bar, into the boys' room, on the roller coaster. It's like we're babysitting a comatose 14-year-old. A real panda couldn't be more trouble. When the time comes to board the bus, we're both weary and glad to dump the panda in its own seat, which it fills. Its girth is as shocking as its height. I say, I hope Jamie appreciates this. Perry says she's going to love it. A little girl sits behind us. She's 8 or 9. She can't take her eyes off the panda. She coos and pets its fur. What a pretty panda. Where did you get it? We won it. What are you going to do with it? I'm giving it to a friend. She asks to sit with the panda. She asks if she can cuddle it. I tell her to help herself. I hope Jamie likes the panda half as much as this girl does. Perry and I are hanging out in the barracks the next morning when Gabriel pokes his head in. The man wants to see you. What about? Gabriel shrugs. I walk slowly, taking my time. I stop at the door to Nick's office, and with a thin smile I remember, Nick the dick. You'll be missed, Roddy. Nick is sitting behind his desk, leaning back in his tall black leather chair. Andre, come in, come in. I sit in a wooden chair across from him. He clears his throat. I understand, he says, that you were at Busch Gardens yesterday. Did you have fun? I say nothing. He waits, then clears his throat again. Well, I understand you came home with a very large panda. I continue to stare straight ahead. Anyway, he says, my daughter apparently has fallen in love with that panda. Ha ha. I think of the little girl on the bus. Nick's daughter. Of course. How could I have missed that? She can't stop talking about it, Nick says. So here's the thing. I'd like to buy that panda from you. Silence. You hear me, Andre? Silence. Can you understand? Silence. Gabriel, why isn't Andre saying anything? He's not speaking to you. Since when? Gabriel frowns. Look, Nick says, just tell me how much you want for it, Andre. I don't move my eyes. I know. Why don't you write down how much you want for it? He slides a piece of paper toward me. I don't move. How about if I give you $200? Deep silence. Gabriel tells Nick that he'll talk to me later about the panda. Yeah, Nick says. Okay. Have a think about it, Andre. You'll never believe this. I tell Perry at the barracks he wanted the panda for his daughter. That little girl on the bus was Nick's daughter. You're kidding. And what did you say? I said nothing. What do you mean, nothing? A vow of silence, remember? Forever. Andre, you misplayed that. No, that's a miss. You've got to revisit this quickly. Here's the play. You take the panda, you give it to Nick, and tell him you don't want his money. You just want an opportunity to succeed and get out of this place. You want wild cards, bids to tournaments, different rules to live by, better food, better everything. Above all, you don't want to go to school. This is your chance to break free. You've got real leverage now. I can't give that fucking guy my panda. I just can't. Besides, what about Jamie? We'll worry about Jamie later. This is your future we're talking about. You have to give that panda to Nick. We talk until long after lights out, arguing in heated whispers. Finally, Perry convinces me. So, he says, yawning, you're going to give it to him tomorrow. No. Bullshit. I'm going to his office right now. I'm going to let myself in with the master key, then put the panda on Nick's tall leather chair, ass up. The next morning, before breakfast, Gabriel comes for me again. Office, on the double. Nick is in his chair. The panda is now in the corner, leaning, staring into space. Nick looks at the panda, then me. He says, you don't talk. You wear makeup. You wear jeans in a tournament. You get me to invite your friend Perry to the tourney, even though he can't play. He can barely chew gum and walk at the same time. And that hair. Don't get me started on that hair. And now you give me something I asked for, but you break into my office in the middle of the night and put it ass up in my fucking chair? How the fuck did you get in my office? Jesus, boy, what is your problem? You want to know what my problem is? Even Nick is shocked by the sound of my voice. I shout, you are my fucking problem. You. And if you haven't figured that out, then you're stupider than you look. Do you have any idea what it's like here? What it's like to be 3,000 miles from home, living in this prison, waking up at 6:30, having 30 minutes to eat that shitty breakfast, getting on that broken down bus, going to that lousy school for 4 hours, hurrying back and having 30 minutes to eat more crap before going on the tennis court day after day after day? Do you? The only thing you have to look forward to, the only real fun you have every week is Saturday night at the Bradenton Mall, and then that gets taken away. You took that from me. This place is hell, and I want to burn it down. Nick's eyes are wider than the panda's, but he's not angry or sad. He's mildly pleased because this is the only language he understands. He reminds me of Pacino in Scarface, when a woman tells him, who, why, when, and how I fuck is none of your business, and Pacino says, now you're talking to me, baby. Nick, I realize, likes it rough. Okay, he says, you made your point. What do you want? I hear Perry's voice. I want to quit school, I say. I want to start doing correspondence school so I can work on my game full time. I want your help instead of the bullshit you've been giving me. I want wild cards, bids to tournaments. I want to take real steps toward turning pro. Of course, none of this is really what I want. It's what Perry tells me I want, and it's better than what I've got. Even as I demand it, I feel ambivalent. But Nick looks at Gabriel, and Gabriel looks at me, and the panda looks at all of us. I'll think about it, Nick says. Hours after Perry leaves for Vegas, Nick sends word via Gabriel that my first wild card will be the big tournament at La Quinta. Also, he's going to get me into the next Florida satellite. Furthermore, I'm to consider myself hereby dismissed and excused from Bradenton Academy. He'll set up a correspondence program of some sort when he gets around to it. Gabriel walks off, smirking. You won, kid. I watch everyone else board the bus for Bradenton Academy, and as it rumbles away, spewing black smoke, I sit on a bench, basking in the sunshine. I tell myself, you're 14 years old, and you never have to go to school again. From now on, every morning will feel like Christmas and the first day of summer vacation combined. A smile spreads across my face, my first in months. No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks. You're free, Andre. You'll never have to learn anything again. Chapter 7. I put in my earring and run down to the hard courts. The morning is mine, and I spend it hitting balls. Hit harder. I hit for 2 hours, channeling my newfound freedom into every swing. I can feel the difference. The ball explodes off my racket. Nick appears, shaking his head. I pity your next opponent, he says. Meanwhile, back in Vegas, my mother begins correspondence school on my behalf. Her first actual correspondence is a letter to me in which she says that her son might not go to college, but he's damn sure going to graduate high school. I write back and thank her for doing my homework and taking my tests. But when she earns the degree, I add she can keep it. In March 1985, I fly to Los Angeles and stay with Philly, who's living in someone's guest cottage, giving tennis lessons, searching for what he wants to do with his life. He helps me train for La Quinta, one of the year's biggest tournaments. The guest cottage is tiny, smaller than our room back in Vegas, smaller than our rented Omni, but we don't mind. We're thrilled to be reunited, hopeful about my new direction. There's just one problem. We have no money. We subsist on baked potatoes and lentil soup. 3 times a day, we bake 2 potatoes and heat a can of generic lentil soup. We then pour the soup over the potatoes and voila, breakfast, lunch, or dinner is served. The whole meal costs 89 cents and keeps hunger at bay for about 3 hours. The day before the tournament, we drive Philly's beat-up jalopy over to La Quinta. The car produces enormous clouds of black smoke. It feels like driving in a portable summer storm. Maybe we should stick a potato in the tailpipe, I tell Philly. Our first stop is the grocery store. I stand before the bin of potatoes and my stomach rolls. I can't face another spud. I walk off, wander up and down the aisles, and find myself in the frozen food section. My eye lands on one particularly enticing treat. Oreo ice cream sandwiches. I reach for them like a sleepwalker. I take a box of ice cream sandwiches from the case and meet my brother in the express lane. Slipping behind him, I gently set the ice cream sandwiches on the conveyor belt. He looks down, then looks at me. We can't afford that. I'll have this instead of my potato. He picks up the box, looks at the price, lets out a low whistle. Andre, this costs as much as 10 potatoes. We can't. I know. Fuck. Walking back to the frozen food case, I think, I hate Philly. I love Philly. I hate potatoes. Woozy with hunger, I go out and beat Broderick Dyke in the first round at La Quinta, 6-4, 6-4. In the second round, I beat Bill Baxter, 6-2, 6-1. In the third round, I beat Russell Simpson, 6-3, 6-3. Then I win my first round in the main draw against John Austin, 6-4, 6-1. Down a break in the first set, I come storming back. I'm 15 years old, beating grown men, beating them senseless, churning my way through the ranks. Everywhere I walk, people are pointing at me, whispering, "There he is. That's the kid I was telling you about, the prodigy." It's the prettiest word I've ever heard applied to me. Prize money for reaching the second round at La Quinta is $2,600, but I'm an amateur, so I get nothing. Still, Philly learns that the tournament will reimburse players for expenses. We sit in his jalopy and make up an itemized list of imaginary expenses, including our imaginary first-class flight from Vegas, our imaginary 5-star hotel room, our imaginarily lavish restaurant meals. We think we are shrewd because our expenses equal exactly $2,600. Philly and I have the balls to ask for so much because we're from Vegas. We've spent our childhoods in casinos. We think we're born bluffers. We think we're high rollers. After all, we did learn to double down before we were potty trained. Recently, while walking through Caesars, Philly and I passed a slot machine just as it began to play that old Depression-era song, "We're in the Money." We knew the song from Pops, so we felt like it was a sign. It didn't occur to us that the slot machine played that song all day long. We sat down at the nearest blackjack table and won. Now, with the same swagger born of naivety, I walk our list of expenses into the office of the tournament director, Charlie Passarell, while Philly waits in the car. Charlie is a former player. In fact, back in 1969, he played Pancho Gonzalez in the longest men's singles match ever at Wimbledon. Pancho is now my brother-in-law. He recently married Rita, another sign that Philly and I are in the money. But the biggest sign of all, one of Charlie's oldest friends is Alan King, who hosted the very same Vegas tournament where I saw Caesar and Cleopatra in the wheelbarrow full of silver dollars, where I worked as a ball boy with Wendy, where I first stepped onto a professional tennis court in an official capacity. Signs, everywhere signs. I place the list on Charlie's desk and stand back. "Huh," Charlie says, looking over the list. "Very interesting. Sorry? Expenses don't usually work out so neat." I feel a hot flash. "Your expenses, Andre, are exactly the same amount as the prize money you'd be able to collect if you were a pro." Charlie looks at me over the top of his glasses. I feel my heart shrivel to the size of a lentil. I consider making a run for it. I imagine Philly and me living in that guest cottage for the rest of our lives. But Charlie suppresses a smile, reaches into a strongbox, and removes a wad of bills. "Here's $2,000, kid. Don't grind me for the other $600. "Thank you, sir. Thank you very much." I run outside and dive into Philly's car. He peels out as if we've just held up the first bank of La Quinta. I count out $1,000 and throw it at my brother. "Your cut of the loot." "What? No, Andre. You worked hard for this, bro." "Are you kidding? We worked. Philly, I couldn't have done this without you. Impossible. We're in this together, man." In the back of our minds, we're both thinking of the morning I woke up with $300 on my chest. We're also thinking of all those nights sitting in the ad court deuce court of our bedroom, sharing everything. He leans over while driving and gives me a hug. Then we talk about where we're going to eat dinner. We're drooling as we bandy names of restaurants about. In the end, we agree that this is a special occasion, a once-in-a-lifetime occasion, which calls for something truly fancy. Sizzler. "I can already taste that ribeye," Philly says. "I'm not going to bother with a plate. I'm just going to shove my head into the salad bar. They have an all-you-can-eat shrimp special. They're going to be sorry they ever came up with that idea." You said it, bro. We gnaw through the La Quinta sizzler, not leaving a single seed or crouton in our wake, then sit around, stare at the money we have left over. We line up the bills, stack them, stroke them. We talk about our new buddy, Benjamin Franklin. We're so drunk on calories, we break out the steam iron and run it lightly over each bill, gently smoothing out the wrinkles in Ben's face. Chapter 8. I continue to live and train at the Bolletieri Academy, with Nick as my coach and sometime travel companion, though he feels more like a sounding board, and honestly, a friend. Our makeshift truce has turned into a surprisingly harmonious working relationship. Nick respects the way I stood up to him, and I respect him for being true to his word. We're working hard to achieve a common goal and conquer the tennis world. I don't expect much from Nick in the way of X's and O's. I look to him for cooperation, not information. Meanwhile, he looks to me for headline-generating wins which help his academy. I don't pay him a salary because I can't, but it's understood that when I turn pro, I'll give him bonuses based on what I earn. He considers this more than generous. Early spring 1986, I tramp all over Florida playing a series of satellite tournaments. Kissimmee, Miami, Sarasota, Tampa. After a year of working hard, focusing exclusively on tennis, I play well, making it to the 5th tournament of the series, the Masters. I reach the final, and though I lose, I'm entitled to a finalist check of $1,100. I want to take it. I yearn to take it. Philly and I sure could use the money. Still, if I take that check, I'm a professional tennis player forever, no turning back. I phone my father back in Vegas and ask him what I should do. My father says, "What the hell do you mean? Take the money." If I take the money, there's no turning back. I'm pro. So, if I cash this check, Pops, that's it. He acts as if we have a bad connection. You've dropped out of school. You have an 8th grade education. What are your choices? What the hell else are you going to do? Be a doctor? None of this comes as news, but I hate the way he puts it. I tell the tournament director I'll take the money. As the words leave my mouth, I feel a shelf of possibilities fall away. I don't know what those possibilities might be, but that's the point. I never will know. The man hands me a check, and as I walk out of his office, I feel as if I'm starting down a long, long road, one that seems to lead into a dark, ominous forest. It's April 29th, 1986, my 16th birthday. In disbelief, all day long, I tell myself, you're a professional tennis player now. That's what you are. That's who you are. No matter how many times I say it, it just doesn't sound right. The one unequivocally good thing about my decision to turn pro is that my father sends Philly on the road with me full-time to help with the minutiae, the endless details and arrangements of being a pro, from renting cars to reserving hotel rooms to stringing rackets. You need him, my father says, but all 3 of us know that Philly and I need each other. The day after I turn pro, Philly gets a call from Nike. They want to meet with me about an endorsement deal. Philly and I meet the Nike man in Newport Beach at a restaurant called the Rusty Pelican. His name is Ian Hamilton. I call him Mr. Hamilton, but he says I should call him Ian. He smiles in a way that makes me trust him instantly. Philly, however, remains wary. "Boys," Ian says, "I think Andre has a very bright future." "Thank you." "I'd like Nike to be a part of that future, to be a partner in that future." "Thank you." "I'd like to offer you a 2-year contract." "Thank you." "During which time Nike will provide all your gear and pay you $20,000. "For both years?" "For each year." "Ah." Philly jumps in. "What would Andre have to do in exchange for this money?" Ian looks confused. "Well," he says, "Andre would have to do what Andre has been doing, son. Keep being Andre and wear Nike stuff." Philly and I look at each other, 2 Vegas kids who still think they know how to bluff. But our poker faces are long gone. We left them back at Sizzler. We can't believe this is happening, and we can't pretend to feel otherwise. At least Philly still has the presence of mind to ask Ian if we may be excused. We need a few moments in private to discuss his offer. We speed walk to the back of the Rusty Pelican and dial my father from the payphone. "Pops," I whisper, "Philly and I are here with the guy from Nike, and he's offering me $20,000. What do you think?" "Ask for more money." "Really?" "More money, more money." He hangs up. Philly and I rehearse what we're going to say. I play me, he plays Ian. Men passing us on their way in and out of the men's room think we're doing a skit. At last we walk casually back to the table. Philly spells out our counteroffer. More money. He looks grave. He looks I can't help but notice, like my father. Okay, Ian says, I think we can manage that. I have a budget for $25,000 for the second year. Deal? We shake his hand. Then we all walk out of the Rusty Pelican. Philly and I wait for Ian to drive off before jumping up and down, singing, "We're in the money." Can you believe this is happening? No, Philly says. Honestly, no, I can't. Can I drive back to L.A.? No, your hands are shaking. You'll plow us straight into a median, and we can't have that. You're worth 20 grand, bro. And 25 next year. All the way back to Philly's place, item 1 on our agenda is what model of cool but cheap car we're going to buy. The main thing is to buy a car with a tailpipe that doesn't blow black clouds. Pulling up to Sizzler in a car that doesn't smoke. Now that would be the height of luxury. My first tournament as a pro is in Schenectady, New York. I reach the final of the $100,000 tournament, then lose to Ramesh Krishnan 6-2, 6-3. I don't feel bad, however. Krishnan is great, better than his ranking of 40-something, and I'm an unknown teenager playing in the final of a fairly important tournament. It's that ultimate rarity, a painless loss. I feel nothing but pride. In fact, I feel a trace of hope because I know I could have played better, and I know Krishnan knows. Next, I travel to Stratton Mountain, Vermont, where I beat Tim Mayotte, who's ranked number 12. In the quarterfinal, I played John McEnroe, which feels like playing John Lennon. The man is a legend. I've grown up watching him, admiring him, though I've often rooted against him, because his arch-rival, Borg, was my idol. I'd love to beat Mac, but this is his first tournament after a brief hiatus. He's well rested, raring to go, and he was recently ranked number 1 in the world. Moments before we take the court, I wonder why a player as polished and accomplished as Mac needs a hiatus. Then he shows me. He demonstrates the virtue of rest. He beats me soundly, 6-3, 6-3. During the loss, however, I managed to hit one atomic winner, a forehand return of Mac's serve that explodes past him. At the post-match news conference, Mac announces to reporters, "I've played Becker, Connors, and Lindell, and no one ever hit a return that hard at me. I never even saw the ball." This one quote, this ringing endorsement of my game from a player of Mac's status, puts me on the national map. Newspapers write about me. Fans write to me. Philly suddenly finds himself deluged with requests for interviews. He giggles every time he fields another. "Nice to be popular," he says. My ranking, meanwhile, keeps pace with my popularity. I go to my first U.S. Open in the late summer of 1986, feeling eager for the step up in competition. Then I see the New York skyline from the airplane window, and my eagerness evaporates. It's a beautiful sight, but intimidating for someone who grew up in the desert. So many people, so many dreams, so many opinions. Up close at street level, New York is less intimidating than irritating. The nasty smells, the ear-splitting sounds, and the tipping. Raised in a house that depended on tips, I believe in tips. But in New York, the tip takes on a brand new dimension. It cost me $100 just to get from the airport to my hotel room. By the time I've greased the palm of the cabbie, the doorman, the bellhop, and the concierge, I'm tapped out. Also, I'm late for everything. I continually underestimate the time it takes to travel in New York from point A to point B. One day, right before the start of the tournament, I'm due to practice at 2 o'clock. I leave my hotel in what I think is plenty of time to reach the arena in Flushing Meadows. I board a charter bus outside the hotel, and by the time we navigate the Midtown gridlock and cross the Triborough, I'm horribly late. A woman tells me they've given away my court. I stand before her pleading for another practice time. "Who are you?" I show her my credentials, flash a weak smile. Behind her is a chalkboard covered with a sea of players' names, which she consults skeptically. I think of Mrs. G. She runs her fingers up and down the left column. "Okay," she says, 4 o'clock, court 8. I peer at the name of the player I'll be practicing with. I'm sorry, I can't practice with that guy. I'm possibly going to play that guy in the second round. She consults the chalkboard again, sighing, annoyed, and now I wonder if Mrs. G has a long-lost sister. At least I'm no longer rocking a mohawk, which would make me even more offensive to this woman. On the other hand, my current hairstyle is only slightly less outrageous. A fluffy, spiky, two-toned mullet with black roots and frosted tips. Okay, she says, court 17, 5 o'clock, but you'll have to share with 3 other guys. I tell Nick, it feels as if I'm in over my head in this town. Nah, he says, you'll be fine. The whole place looks a lot better from a distance. What doesn't? In the first round, I face Jeremy Bates from Great Britain. We're on a back court, far from the crowds and the main action. I'm excited. I'm proud. Then I'm terrified. I feel as if it's the final Sunday of the tournament. My butterflies are flying in tight formation. Because it's a grand slam, the energy of the match is different from anything I've experienced. More frenetic, the play is moving at warp speed, a rhythm with which I'm unfamiliar. Plus, the day is windy, so points seem to be flying past like the gum wrappers in dust. I don't understand what's happening. This doesn't even feel like tennis. Bates isn't a better player than I, but he's playing better because he came in knowing what to expect. He beats me in 4 sets, then looks up at my box where Philly is sitting with Nick and shoves his fist into the crook of his arm, the international sign for up yours. Apparently Bates and Nick have a history. I feel disappointed, slightly embarrassed, but I know that I wasn't prepared for the first U.S. Open or New York. I see a gap between where I am and where I need to be, and I feel reasonably confident that I can close that gap. You're going to get better, Philly says, putting an arm around me. It's just a matter of time. Thanks, I know. And I do know, I really do. But then I begin to lose. Not just lose, but lose badly. Weakly, miserably. In Memphis, I get knocked out in the first round. In Key Biscayne, first round again. Philly, I say, what's going on? I have no clue out there. I feel like a hacker, a weekend player. I'm lost. The low point is at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. It's not a tennis facility, but a converted basketball arena, and barely that. Cavernous, poorly lit, it's got 2 tennis courts side by side and 2 matches taking place simultaneously. At the same moment I'm returning serve, somebody is returning serve in the net court, and if his serve goes wide at the same moment mine kicks, we both need to worry about colliding head-on. My concentration is fragile enough without factoring in collisions with other players. I don't know yet how to tune out distractions. After 1 set, I can't think and can't hear anything but my own heartbeat. Also, my opponent is bad, which puts me at a disadvantage. I'm at my worst against lesser opponents. I play down to their level. I don't know how to maintain my game while adjusting for an opponent's, which feels like inhaling and exhaling at the same time. Against great players, I rise to the challenge. Against bad players, I press, which is the tennis term for not letting things flow. Pressing is one of the deadliest things you can do in tennis. Philly and I stagger back to Vegas. We're discouraged, but a more immediate problem is that we're broke. I've made no money in months, and with all the traveling and hotels, all the rental cars and restaurant meals, I've burned through nearly all my Nike money. From the airport, I drove straight to Perry's house. We hole up in his bedroom with a couple of sodas. As soon as his door is closed, I feel safer, saner. I notice that the walls are plastered with a few dozen more covers of Sports Illustrated. I study the faces of all the great athletes, and I tell Perry that I always believed I'd be a great athlete, whether I wanted to be one or not. I took it for granted. It was my life, and though I hadn't chosen it, my sole consolation was its certainty. At least fate has a structure. Now I don't know what the future holds. I'm good at one thing, but it looks as though I'm not as good at that one thing as I thought. Maybe I'm finished before I've started, in which case, what the hell are Philly and I going to do? I tell Perry that I want to be a normal 16-year-old, but my life keeps getting more abnormal. It's abnormal to be humiliated at the U.S. Open. It's abnormal to run around the spectrum worrying about a head-on collision with some giant Russian. It's abnormal to be shunned in locker rooms. Why are you shunned? Because I'm 16 and in the top 100. Also, Nick isn't well liked, and I'm associated with Nick. I have no friends, no allies. I have no girlfriend. Jamie and I are done. My latest crush, Jillian, another schoolmate of Perry's, doesn't return my calls. She wants a boyfriend who isn't on the road all the time. I can't blame her. Perry says, I had no idea you were dealing with all this. But here's the topper, I tell him. I'm broke. What happened to the 20 grand from Nike? Travel, expenses. It's not just me on the road. It's Philly, Nick. It adds up. When you're not winning, it adds up faster. You can burn through 20 grand fast. Can you ask your father for a loan? No, absolutely not. Help from him comes with a cost. I'm trying to break free of him. Andre, everything will be fine. Yeah, sure. Really, it's about to get so much better. Before you know it, you're going to be winning again. Blink your eyes and your face will be on one of those Sports Illustrated covers. It will, I know it. And Jillian, please, she's small time. You'll always have girl problems. That's the nature of the beast. But soon the girl giving you problems will be Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields? Where do you get Brooke Shields? He laughs. I don't know. I just read about her in Time. She's graduating from Princeton. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. She's brilliant. She's famous. And someday you're going to date her. Don't get me wrong. Your life may never be normal. But soon the abnormal will be cool. Buoyed by Perry, I go to Asia. I have just enough cash to get Philly and me there and back. I play the Japan Open, win a few matches before falling to Andre Gomez in the quarters. I then go to Seoul, where I reach the final. I lose, but my share of the prize money is $7 grand, enough to fund another 3 months of searching for my game. As Philly and I land in Vegas, I feel relieved. I feel buoyant. Our father is meeting us at the airport, and I tell Philly as we walk through McCarran International Airport that I've made a momentous decision. I'm going to hug Pops. Hug him? What for? I feel good. I'm happy, damn it. Why not? I'm going to do it. You only live once. Our father is at the gate, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. I rush toward him, wrap my arms around him, and squeeze. He doesn't move. He stiffens. It feels like hugging the pilot. I release him and tell myself I'll never try that again. Philly and I go to Rome in May 1987. I'm in the main draw, so our rooms will be comped. We can upgrade from the dump Philly booked, which doesn't have TVs or shower curtains, to the swank Cavalieri, which sits atop a main hill overlooking the city. In our free days before the tournament, we get out and see the sights. We go to the Sistine Chapel and gaze at the frescoes of Christ hanging St. Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. We stare at Michelangelo's ceiling and learn from the tour guide that he was a tormented perfectionist, eaten up with rage whenever he discovered that his work, or even materials on which he planned to work, had the tiniest flaws. We spend a day in Milan, stopping in churches and museums. We stand for half an hour before Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. We learn about da Vinci's notebooks, with their minute observations of the human form and their futuristic plans for helicopters and toilets. Both of us are floored that one man could have been so inspired. To be inspired, I tell Philly, that's the secret. The Italian Open is on red clay, a surface that feels unnatural to me. I've only played on green clay, which is sort of fast. Red clay, I tell Nick, is hot glue and wet tar laid across a bed of quicksand. You can't put a guy away on this red clay shit, I complain at our first practice. He smirks. You're going to be fine, he says. You just have to get used to it. Don't be impatient. Don't try to finish every point. I don't have the slightest idea what he means. I lose in the second round. We fly to Paris for the French Open. More red clay. I manage to win my first rounder, but get spanked in the second. Again, Philly and I try to see something of the city, to improve ourselves. We go to the Louvre. The sheer number of paintings and sculptures daunts us. We don't know where to turn, how to stand. We can't comprehend all that we're seeing. We pass from room to room, dumbstruck. Then we come to a piece that we understand all too well. It's a painting from the Italian Renaissance, and it depicts a young man, naked, standing on a cliff. With one hand he clutches a bare, breaking tree limb. With the other he holds a woman and two infants. Wrapped around his neck is an old man, perhaps his father, who also grasps a sack of what looks like money. Below them lies an abyss strewn with the bodies of those who couldn't hold on. Everything depends on this one naked man's strength, his grip. The longer you look, I tell Philly, the tighter that old guy's arm around the hero's neck feels. Philly nods. He looks up at the man on the cliff and says softly, "Hang in there, bro." In June 1987, we go to Wimbledon. I'm scheduled to play a Frenchman, Henri Leconte, on Court 2, known as the Graveyard Court because so many players have suffered fatal losses there. It's my first time at the most hallowed venue in tennis, and from the moment we arrive, I dislike it. I'm a sheltered teenager from Las Vegas with no education. I reject all that's alien, and London feels as alien as a place can be. The food, the buses, the venerable traditions. Even the grass of Wimbledon smells different from the grass back home, what little there is of it. More off-putting, Wimbledon officials appear to take a haughty, high-handed pleasure in telling players what to do and what not to do. I resent rules, but especially arbitrary rules. Why must I wear white? I don't want to wear white. Why should it matter to these people what I wear? Above all, I take offense at being barred and blocked and made to feel unwanted. I need to show a badge to get into the locker room, and not the main locker room at that. I'm playing in this tournament, but I'm treated as an intruder, not even allowed to practice on the courts where I'll be competing. I'm restricted to indoor courts up to the street. Consequently, the first time I ever hit a ball on grass is the first time I play Wimbledon. And what a shock. The ball doesn't bounce right, doesn't bounce at all, because this grass isn't grass, but ice slathered with Vaseline. And I'm so afraid of slipping that I tiptoe. When I look around to see if the British fans have noticed my discomfort, I get a scare. They're right on top of me. The building is like a dollhouse. Add my name to the list of those who've expired on Graveyard Court. Leconte euthanizes me. I tell Nick that I'm never coming back. I'll hug my father again before I embrace Wimbledon. Still in a foul mood, I travel several weeks later to Washington, D.C. In the first round, playing Patrick Coonan, I come up empty, bone dry. After the long slug across Europe, I have nothing left. The travel, the losses, the stress, it's all sapped me. Plus, the day is oppressively hot, and I'm not physically fit. I'm wholly unprepared, so I become unpresent. When we're tied at one set apiece, I leave the court mentally. My mind departs my body and goes floating out of the arena. I'm long gone when the third set starts. I lose 6-0. I walk to the net and shake Coonan's hand. He says something, but I can't see or hear him. He's a blob of energy at the end of a tube. I grab my tennis bag and stumble out of the arena. I walk across the street into Rock Creek Park, into some woods, and when I feel sure no one is around, I berate the trees. I can't take this shit anymore. I'm fucking done. I quit. I keep walking until I come to a clearing where I find myself surrounded by a group of homeless men. Some are sitting on the ground, some are stretched out on logs sleeping. 2 are playing cards. They all look like trolls in a fairy tale. I walk up to one who seems fairly alert. I unzip my bag and remove several Prince rackets. Here, man, you want these? Do you? Because I don't have any use for them anymore. The man isn't sure what's happening, but he's pretty confident that he's finally met someone crazier than himself. His buddies shuffle over, and I tell them, "Gather round, fellas, gather round. It might be 100 degrees in the shade, but it's Christmas Eve." I dump out my tennis bag, pull out the rest of the rackets, each one worth hundreds of dollars, and pass them around. "Here, help yourselves. I sure as hell won't be needing them." Then, reveling in how much lighter my tennis bag feels, I walk to the hotel where Philly and I are staying. I sit on one bed, and Philly sits on the other, just like old times, in more ways than one. I tell him I've had it. I can't do this anymore. He doesn't argue. He understands. Who better to understand? We knuckle down to details, making a plan. How to tell Nick, how to tell my father, how I can earn a living. "What do you want to do instead of playing tennis?" "I don't know." We go out for dinner, talk it over, analyze where I stand financially, a few $100s above zero. We joke that we're getting close to potato and lentil soup territory. Back at the hotel, the phone in our room is flashing. I have one message. The organizers of a tennis exhibition in North Carolina phoned to say a player canceled on them. They want to know if I can play. If I do, they'll guarantee me $2,000. Philly agrees it would be nice to walk away from tennis with a little coin in my pocket. "Okay," I say, "one last tournament. I better get some more rackets." In the first round, I draw a kid named Michael Chang. I grew up playing him. I played him all through juniors, and I've never lost to him. I've never even had problems with him. Also, he's only 15, 2 years younger than I. He comes up to my navel, so this is just what the doctor ordered for my bruised psyche, a preordained beatdown. I walk onto the court, smiling. Chang, however, has undergone some kind of metamorphosis since our last meeting. He's made a quantum leap in his game, and now he plays like a flea on speed. It takes everything I've got to beat him. Still, I do beat him. My first win in months. I decide to postpone my retirement. Just a few more weeks. I tell Philly I want to go to Stratton Mountain, where I did well last year. Stratton will be a fitting place for my last hurrah. We fly up to Vermont with 2 fellow players, Peter Duhan and Kelly Everden. Kelly says he's grabbed the Stratton draw right before we left. "Anyone want to hear who he'll be playing?" "I do." "No, Andre, you don't." "Uh-oh. Who did I draw?" "Luke Jensen." Fuck. Luke's the best junior in the world, by far the most promising kid on the tour. I sink in my seat and watch the clouds. Should have quit while I was ahead. Should have retired after Chang. Luke serves both lefty and righty, which is why they call him dual-hand Luke, and he can bring it 130 miles an hour from either side. But today, against me, his first serve is off, and I cane his second. I'm more surprised than he is when I scrape by him in 3 sets in advance. Next up is Pat Cash, who just won Wimbledon, 12 days after I met my demise on Graveyard Court. Cash is a machine, a finely tuned athlete who moves well and covers the net like a hydra. I don't even think about beating him, only about holding my own. But in the early going, I find that he doesn't have a lot of top on his ball, so I'm getting nice, clean, eye-level looks, hitting one winner after another. Since I have no chance to win, since I want only to be credible, I'm free, loose, and this makes Cash tight. He appears shocked by what's unfolding. He's missing first serves, which lets me cheat in a half step, put everything I've got behind my return. Every time I hit a ball past him, Cash glances across the net with an expression that says, "This wasn't in the plan. You're not supposed to be doing this." Foolishly, somewhat arrogantly, he spends more and more time at the net looking surprised rather than going back to the baseline and thinking up a new strategy. After one of my better returns, he hits a so-so volley, and I pass him again. He stands with his hands on his hips, staring at me, radiating a sense of injustice. Keep staring, I think. Keep it up. Toward the end, he's giving me painfully easy targets, making his ball so beautifully hittable, so marvelously strikeable, that it all seems unfair. I have a legit chance of hitting a winner on every point. I just wanted to leave a mark, but I'm leaving a gash. I score a shocking upset, 7-6, 7-6. Stratton Mountain, I conclude, is my magic mountain, my anti-Wimbledon. Last year, I played above my level here. Now I'm playing twice as well. The setting is breathtaking, laid back, and quintessentially American. Unlike those snooty Brits, these Strattonites know me, or at least the idealized me I want them to know. They don't know about my struggles of the last 12 months, about my giving rackets to homeless men, about my pending retirement, and if they knew, they wouldn't hold it against me. They cheered me during my match with Jensen, but after I outclass Cash, they adopt me. This guy is our guy. This guy does well here. Inspired by their raucous encouragement, I reached the semis against Ivan Lendl, who's ranked number 1, my biggest match ever. My father flies in from Vegas. An hour before the match, Lendl is walking around the locker room wearing only his tennis shoes. Seeing him so relaxed, so remarkably nude, right before facing me, I know what's coming. The beatdown to end all beatdowns. I lose in 3 sets. Still, I walk away feeling encouraged because I won the second set. For half an hour, I gave the best in the world all he wanted. I can build on that. I feel good. That is, until I see what Lendl has to say about me in the newspapers. Ask about my game, he sniffs. A haircut and a forehand.